Blacklight, first of all, we're always grateful when you show up, with your beautiful face. You've carefully curated your public persona. And even when we did a podcast with you, we were like, wow, that's cool. We're getting to meet you. But you look, I think if for some reason people haven't been following you, they will, and they should, because I don't want to, I don't know, you're in your own category, but I think of you and NeuralViz and a couple other people that were early. We're doing the work of building a brand, building a voice, telling a story, creating a community, creating an audience, and really having a presence and a voice beyond even the work you do. I think you're such a great advocate for a lot of the things going on in the space. I think we spoke to you a lot on the podcast when Min and I, and we encourage people to check that out. And we can revisit anything that feels relevant to you today. But you in one of the group chats was talking about distribution. And I think that's probably even relevant to some of these moments like Adobe, of like, what have you learned on your sort of pole position is something that we'd love to learn about today. But I'd love people to at least get a little intro and remember why we're excited to meet you today. If I can hand the mic over to you.
Yeah. I'm an artist out of Portland. I've been doing art my whole life. I've been playing music since I was 5, piano lessons for 10 years. Took a break to focus on my career, built and sold a couple companies, working on a third company now. And then picked up AI from really an anti-AI stance. And then it wasn't until I got into the tools and using them and kind of understanding them more, the potential that they offer more than what was the surface level arguments of people that are pretty opposed to AI. And then, in regards to distribution, I think that's like the next kind of frontier for a lot of people. It's hard to kind of stand out when there's so many people that are flooding into an emerging market that this is. For the people that are watching on Escape, I mean, Escape has been a great platform for me. And I was one of the early artists there. I think I have like almost 50 videos on there now throughout the span of the past year and a half. I've done I'm working on my 4th solo film this month. So I'm going to be dropping that on Friday. And then, just constantly creating, whether it's art or music or videos. It's a really great outlet, and it's been a really cool way for me to kind of express myself beyond just the kind of surface level stuff that is social media. So it's been integral. But I think distribution for me, the important part is like putting an egg in a basket. And not the sands are like shifting so much in AI that it's really hard to like plant your flag somewhere because it's going to change in a week or sometimes in a day. So it's amazing the difference a day can make in this industry and in this space. So I've learned to just kind of stay nimble, see what's going on in the space, and work on different projects. I work on private client work for my day job. I do music videos for different artists. I'm doing fast TV shows that are getting ready to stream. I'm doing direct to consumer platforms similar to like Escape, different art platforms where I sell art. So it's really like just about diversifying my body of work or my portfolio into as many different places as possible, because you never know where your audience is going to be. So you might as well put it wherever you can and wherever people are willing to show it.
I mean, you buck a lot of trends, and even in the way you're rattling up your journey. I mean, on the one hand, you're not a new creator. I think even in your bio that you send over, you're like, by the way, I've done quite a bit in the tech world, and you've been a marketing brain that understands the business, so to speak. And then this is almost the second personality for yourself that you've created. So even that speaks to, this isn't an accident. The path you're on, it's informed by a lot of instinct. But it's funny. I remember there being a moment in the group chat where, someone who I can't remember their name, but was making a point of, obviously all of this is a pathway to eventually go back to working on a team. They made some comment but that's a very natural comment for people to come from filmmaking or TV that, we're used to working on teams. And there was sort of this sort of immediate thought of like, well, obviously nobody wants to just make movies by themselves. And maybe that's true for a lot of people. Maybe that is something we talk about at our events, that we're kind of recreating the on-set experience with our Gen Jams. But I think of you when that person made that comment. I'm like, I don't know, maybe these things aren't all absolutely true. I think you've really created a model that everything you just described, you're doing by yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. I love collaborating too. I mean, I think working with the team is exciting. But even for the company that I work with who manages, like almost hundreds of clients, like, uh, it's small team is what I find works the best because in this space, there's a lot of large personalities and everyone always has their own vision. There's a lot of people that always want to be in the driver's seat. And so, you know, i- if I decide to collaborate with three or four different artists on something, everyone just kind of picks their specialty and run with it. I mean, the film I'm working on right now, exactly right. I'm doing all the music. I wrote all the scripts myself. I did all the images, doing all the animations, all the edits. It's hard, you lose that sounding board that's almost necessary in the creative space. And there's something naturally collaborative about art. So it's weird to do it alone sometimes. And we're so excited to always show other people our work. A lot of the stuff I don't show because it's under NDAs and things I can't really talk about. So it's like I want to show people this cool thing, but you can't show people that stuff. So I think there's room for both there, and there's something intimately special about a solo creator because you're getting something that's just a very pure vision of what they have curated. And AI really is ultimately about the curation of as many elements as possible. And I think that's where the tug of war kind of happens. And even in the AI crowd, we see people getting nervous about agents and agentic building because you don't necessarily want to lose that creative input and just hand everything over to a machine. However, there are benefits to, handing over 50 bulk images and saying, hey, give me 8 variations of all of these images based off of this script. There's something that's going to be helpful there without being a replacement for human creativity.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of people that are forming opinions off of like having just arrived in the last month of like, wow, Sora 2 via 3.1. And there's just this incredible abundance of quality but you've sort of built a point of view off of so many stages of this technology. And it's interesting that you even said you came at it not necessarily as a lover at first, that you sort of found peace in it. What does that knowledge do for you as you look at whether it's the technology changes or the way that new creators are joining? What are you sensing as a new opportunity for the type of work you do and the creators are contributing to?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately going to come down to the type of stories that you tell and the way that you tell them. I think the largest hurdle historically in like media consumption is that have been limited by somebody else's tastes and preferences, and it's usually the person that's holding the bag, and that's what gets fed to everybody else. Social media kind of started to buck that trend, and I think we saw like with influencers, there was a desire to like watch reality in a different lens. And I think AI has opened a door to like a new level of that where creators can become these new influencers and they're not really influence anything. It's just a different point of view, a different perspective, a different way to look at something, explore different concepts and do it in a way that's like visually exciting
That's
and non-traditional.
that's an interesting. I mean, again, so many people have become influencers by putting themselves in front of the camera. It's interesting to think that in some ways this has unleashed another type of influence.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm the exact opposite. Like I'm so uncomfortable right now.
yeah,
I like to like not be in front of a camera and even feel like almost hypocritical because I want work to stand on its own for what it is and not have to explain it. I was telling someone about like just like a quick anecdote, the film I'm working on this month and like what does it mean? What's the whole story? Because I'm doing everything kind of out of order. And it's really just like a social commentary on like mass surveillance state and how we're just giving up our control willingly to the privacy concerns that we had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And we're all just like, here you go. And so it's just a large allegory of that while also being like a backstory and lore to this entire universe that I've so to be able to like tell that story in a way that's different, um, helps other people maybe understand some of these concepts that they haven't thought about or explored before.
I mean, so like in that context of a new type of creator and a new type of influencer, I mean, just to go back to the topic of distribution, like again, the traditional narrative is I need to basically get permission to distribute, and YouTube kind of destroyed that a long time ago.
Mhm.
But even that maybe favored people that were in front of the camera, in ways that sort of that created obviously a lot of opportunity there. If there's a new Candyland board of what you're discovering as sort of pathways to I don't know, maybe wealth and success or impact or connecting with or finding audiences, what have you found that might be uniquely a discovery of using creative tools, not just to point cameras back at someone who's comfortable on camera? What have you discovered, and how does that a pathway to building a career, frankly? It sounds like
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to we're creating media, a new form of media. And so in the lens of distribution, like if the funnel ultimately comes back to you, what does that funnel look like? So it starts with having a website. It starts with having a vision for yourself, and then thinking about where people consume media. So movie theaters, TV screens for streaming, and their phones primarily. Maybe some real world exhibitions. We're starting to see the emergence of new gallery spaces that are digital focused galleries, bringing the digital to a physical space. So it's then thinking about how you want to get your work in front of the audience that you think is fit. Am I going to be making film for movie theaters? Probably not. I've done them, but most of my audience is on social, and it's very lighthearted, and it's um, comedy based. So it's just a different market. I talk with PJ East a lot. He's a good friend of mine, and um, we've talked about how there's different lanes. He works primarily in the advertising lane. His work gets seen from an advertising lens, whereas mine is like a completely different strategy. I'm actually building out like an IP and, looking at more like the South Park model, who can sell for $1 billion and started as like, you know, shitty paper cutout animation of crude humor. So there's value in both, but the reward structures are different. And I think you need to know which lane you want to be in. If it's advertising, then you need to focus on where advertisers are. That's LinkedIn, and showcasing your work there. If you're focusing on entertainment, places like Escape, Rad TV, Alchemy, there's tons of different streaming options that are growing and coming up. If you're looking at Fast TV, there's Fairground, and there's some others in the space that are growing there. And then there's also just the community itself. I can't tell you how many opportunities I've passed on because it's not in my lane, but I know somebody whose lane it is. And I'll say, hey, check out this person. So,
So if I'm hearing that, if we're using sales funnel language, which is very kind of, everything is marketing in some way. The PJ's model is very direct. Here's someone that literally made a fake commercial and he sort of manifested that he wants to be a successful advertising creative. And that's his journey. Filmmaking, you just mentioned a number of other platforms that stoke that type of attention. And, whether that means that CAA agents are sort of vulturing around that looking for opportunities or just that you're connecting with other collaborators. I like the IP story you're telling. Do you find that, and this, I'd love to talk about what you're doing for Halloween because it's amazing. And we shared a link to it, but what a ambitious, high effort project that it is. And all your work really speaks to real intention. Is there a new take on IP, that this idea of being able to iterate so quickly and share it so quickly and get feedback so quickly? Is that part of what you're doing, or do you really have a big plan and this is all in shipping mode? How do you relate to this IP you're building?
yeah, I think the idea of IP is interesting because, like, we've seen with the popularity of Sora that, if you give someone these tools, they're going to want to put themselves in their favorite movies. They're going to want to do these things. Um, but on the flip side of it, and I understand, coming from initially an anti AI background, I understood why writers, were striking. I understand why actors get upset. I understand why filmmakers get upset because making a film myself, I understand, like, this month I probably put in over 1,000 hours on this film that I've been working on. So I think about huge IPs that have been built with, dozens and dozens of people over the course. Look at The Simpsons. how many people have The Simpsons employed over the years and have genuinely built something over a decade? For that to then be minimized so easily and recreated, I think it's such a waste for what AI can offer to us. It has its place, in the attention economy. People love watching the Door Brothers video of different political, commentary. People are entertained by the meme of JD Vance being a little chubby baby, like there's a place for it in meme culture. But I think there's a responsibility of a lot of AI creators that, there isn't a lot of regulation right now. What's stopping any of us from creating a, very convincing deepfake that could cause like serious socioeconomic harm? And the only thing that stops that is almost the respect for the work that it takes to do this and the respect for other people in the industry that are doing that work. And so I'm trying to go a different kind of way and just create something genuinely new and unique with the tools that are available. And I've practiced that in the ways that I've also lambasted companies against it. I've been very critical of companies that are using stolen training data and just making easily replicatable AI content. I think that's lazy. I think that there is a craft to this, and there is a way that you can do this in an ethical way, and there is a way to win over AI haters. I had a guy comment yesterday about a bunch of generalizations, anti-AI, and I was like, look, man, like I make all my own image models. I sit here and curate day in and day out. I work 14-hour days almost every day. I don't have weekends. Like there is effort that goes into it. There is a way to do this where you're not um, stealing, as a word that, a lot of people push back on.
I mean, your work is so original, and it has such a, I mean, it's art, it's a creation in a way that it's not just a picture of Donald Trump with a joke attached to it, in a way that meme culture, it runs wild with other techniques. I guess in that creation, how much of that is just your head distributed of your ideas, or do you have a process that listens, whether it's just seeing what registers and what gets a lot of hits, or do you hear people talk about the story and then that factors into where you're going? Like, is there a porous relationship with your audience?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's big time. I mean, I spent the first 8 or 9 months just testing styles every day, doing a music video, a different style, things that I wanted to try out. I mean, a lot of my stuff is from dreams or from experiences, things that I pull from, and I'm just constantly taking notes. I have little dream interpretation books. I'm like, oh, that's a cool concept, and kind of run with that. But once I hit on something that was received well, I kind of doubled down and tripled down on that styling. The problem with that though is then you hit this dead end where you're creating for an audience who wants something very specific all the time. And you get kind of locked into that. And I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want to be locked in creatively. So I've worked on hard to kind of expand slowly and, give people what they want. For example, Cryptid Dating game is people love it. It's the most basic, rudimentary, stupid humor to me, but people love it. I've made like 23 episodes of it. But then in spaced in between there, I'll do something else or I'll do a different styling. And it's interesting to see that once I hit that kind of large mass of people that were outside of the bubble, they're very critical. And they'll tell you flat out, like, this is slop or I hate this. But a lot of people have attached themselves to the lore and to characters. And there's almost like a love of the characters now that's beyond me. And so it's almost like a responsibility to like give them the things that they want, give your audience what they want to see.
I can't help but wonder, your stuff is so distinctive. Like, and forgive me if I miss this. Are you doing merch?
Yeah,
Okay. How's that going?
it's good. I do probably about $1,000 a month on average on merch.
Okay.
So it's not like crazy, but it's consistent and it's 24 hours. I go in there once a month and refresh it, or my girlfriend helps me out and does some of the designs and stuff for me. So I let her kind of manage that side of it. But it's one of those things that's on 24 hours and it's a way for people to support you. So
Well,
I've had people send me pictures dancing in their different Damien Lovejoy t-shirts and stuff. So it's wild. I never thought I would have people be like fans where they're like buying merch and then showing it off on social media.
awesome.
it's such a weird feeling.
And that's part of the distribution narrative too, is like all of
Yeah.
these ways to reach more people. A few questions coming in. Jennifer asking, do you use models that train on licensed data? And if so, what issues are you finding?
I have in the past. So what I've done previously, I would use Midjourney as an exploration tool within a style. So how do these specific tokens look in a specific style? And I had one time where I prompted like two weirdos out too late causing a bunch of trouble, and it was in a certain style, and the images that were coming up were literally like Rick and Morty, The Simpsons, Mickey Mouse as a gangster. And I'm like, I didn't prompt for any of this. And so once I had that moment, I just personally kind of felt the ick and I threw all of it out. I'm like, all of this is tainted. I can't use any of this. Because one image from that set, it can be pulled back and you're like, hey, look, there's other things in here that I just curated away from, and almost like benefiting the company by not showing them. And I felt it's important to show like, hey, there is a way that you can do this ethically. So what I do now is I actually use Comfy, and I will generate images based off those LoRa mixes. And I never use artist names. I never use any sort of like famous or existing IP. I just use like different characteristics or adjectives for characters until I find something that I like. I'll curate maybe, 500 or 600 images from that. And then I'll take the top one that I curate, and then I'll make a new model in Free Pick or Krea or Let's or somewhere, and it'll be trained on just kind of those images. And then from there, I just iterate as I need to, and it keeps all the stylizing the same.
Of that. Thank you. The two other questions, actually quick one, which base model in Comfy, Flux, or SD?
So I will use both. I use Flux and Stable Diffusion.
All of the above.
Yes.
Another quick question. There's a longer question, but I just want to do the quickies first. What are your favorite music creation tools for your movies?
So right now I do a lot of like GarageBand. So I'll like record something on like a keyboard or like a little ditty. I'll like put something into it. And then I'll either throw that into Udio to expand on from there, usually like 30 seconds at a time. And then a lot of times I'll take the output from that because it usually caps at 2 minutes, and I'll move that output into Producer. And then from Producer, I can iterate further. I can expand the sound range. I can work with different frequencies because you can prompt for that stuff. So even on the music side, there's like an iterative process. Because I grew up playing piano, it's very easy for me to just like do a couple notes and any sort of, sound that I need, and then just iterate on top of that.
Awesome. Thank you. One bigger picture question. I have one last bigger question, and then I'd love to move to Malik today. I'm grateful to show up from Nigeria. Pamela is asking, what's your best advice for a creatively curious soul just starting to explore AI filmmaking, visual storytelling? Where do we begin when we feel late but so ready? Which I think is a good, inspiring place to lead, because again, we're so specific on so many of the things, but a lot of people are coming in early and they get a little overwhelmed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would start with like an all-in-one tool. Something like Free Pick is fantastic. Krea, Nim, one of the platforms that has kind of image and video all in one, because it gives you a way to kind of dip your toe in each of these different sets again, essentially. I mean, even in image generation, right? As someone mentioned, there's so many different models like that you can choose from. They are all going to produce a different output. Some are better at text than others. Some are better at photorealism than others are. So it kind of depends on each of those, what you're going to dive deeper into. But I think a good starting point is like working with an all-in-one, being able to create an image and then, animate it and understand what that process feels like, and then start to get to know the different models, different tool sets, different options that you have. That's probably the easiest way to start.
I think it's a really sharp. We are benefiting from these sort of all-in-one settings that you kind of at least eliminate that, like, how many websites do I need feeling, which maybe is what Adobe is going after, to go back to our previous conversation. A follow up on the music thing, on the calls asking, as a musician, how do you feel about pseudo video and other AI music?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way with music AI as I do with image and video AI, is that, using data that is publicly available to learn structure. For example, song structure has time measure, your treble, your bass, the notes that are in each of those, time signature. For an AI to study that and then iterate off of is fantastic and almost an inevitability to where things are moving. To use the tools to recreate something that you already like is the wrong use of these tools. So for iteration and for learning structure, I think it's fantastic. For recreation, it's not really what you should be using it for, in my opinion.
Good answer. Queensley, I see you're asking about teamwork, but we almost specifically talked about how Blacklight does almost all the work by himself. So that might be a quick answer for you. I just want to pivot to Malik soon. I guess like if anybody follows you, you're not bashful with your opinions. I think you often even stand up for things where other people are quiet and without opening up issue areas. I think just to lead into, we're sort of approaching the end of the year. We had Willonius on here a month or so ago, and he had sort of like an amazing final moment where he really saw the next 6 months as this really valuable time for anybody that's here to sort of make their stamp. Similarly, I don't know whether you agree with that or not. I wonder, like, we're sort of, all these things feel like inflections. We're in this like AI time machine that months feel like years, all the cliches of how we react to the pace of development and work. And what is it, if it's something you'd say back to us or a question you might have back to us, like, how are you looking at this inflection moment that all of us are starting to pay attention to or have been paying attention to? What do you think is important for people to focus on as this year wraps up?
Yeah, I think the thing that's coming is AI creates everything. You can one prompt it and it'll give you whatever you want. And there will always be a need for someone to view something that they didn't create themselves. But I think the most important part to establish yourself is really like think about what you want to tell, what your voice is, and just build on that and expand on that and keep iterating into that. Because the thing that AI can't reproduce is your perspective. And so figure out what your perspective is and the stories that you want to tell, and then really lean into that and go for that.
It is unfortunately the simple statement that any film student maybe heard years ago, which is you got to find your voice. But
Hmm.
seems like there's a big opportunity to do something with it these days
Hmm.
in new ways. Look, we could talk to you forever. And honestly, we love how much you contribute in the group chat. And also as someone who also, maybe it's not clear. It's not normal for me to be in front of a lot of people. So I can relate to you that this is a new voice for a lot. Like I'm grateful that whether it's courage or gumption or whatever it is that you do to join us today. I really appreciate you sharing with us and being with us. And we can't wait to see you again. And
Yeah.
actually, just final plug. Like, can you talk about the last 30 days, the whispers in whispers of the night, or
Whispers in the Dark.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's essentially like all the lore and backstory for everything that I've built over the past year. And I've been doing 30 sequences in 30 days, and they're all out of order. So it's just been kind of like a live puzzle. And then on Halloween, I'm putting everything in chronological order and just releasing it as a full film.
Unreal, unreal. And so it was in the link I sent out. We'll send it out again afterwards. But everybody, please check it out, which is just a great example of also creating a format that doesn't exist and experimenting with it and having a community that you created with your audience to tell you what they think about it. You're doing it, and we're so proud of seeing people like you inspire us.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you. Appreciate
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Obviously, if people have more questions, and if Blacklight has time, jump into the chat. But I'm going to unpin you and bring up our next guest. Malik, if I can just hear your voice really quickly, and you'll appear for me. You're still listening. Let's see. There you are. Great. And then the pin comes up. It's the easiest trick I can come up with.
Malik.
Malik, man, I don't know. You met Malik in person. If you don't mind, I'd love your intro even.
Malik is awesome. Malik is actually why Matt and I ended up in Nigeria, because he brought Obina from the Nigeria's community, and then we ended up there in Lagos. So, and then I got to meet Malik in person, which was awesome. And his story is amazing and extremely inspiring. So I hope we can dig into that because it's really, really cool what Malik has been doing with fashion and AI.
Yeah, I mean, Malik, I'll turn the mic over to you. I feel like you maybe need no introduction. I think many even helped us out here, but I'm also just in awe of the prolific work you've laid out and the Elder series itself. I think if people haven't seen it, I'd love you to talk about that today. But welcome, and I'd love you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. Good to see you again, Lee. And just thank you for having me. Yes, my name is Malik. I'm a creative technologist and a storyteller across different mediums of expression. Expressions are like film, fashion, arts, literally anything that I feel like telling stories, and I find a medium and I tell that story. I've been experimenting with technology for about 10 years and in the media industry for about 18 years. My background is a director in TV production, broadcast, and the likes, but I kind of pivoted into virtual reality, augmented reality, and then today artificial intelligence. So the project that I'm most known for is the Elder series, and that was I think that's 2 years ago right now when I was dealing with grief and I was trying to find a way to go through that. And for me, storytelling and art is kind of like therapy for me. When I step away from the big sets that I do, when I shoot TV commercial, I step away, I try to just create stuff that it's different from the regular thing. And at that point, I was going through depression as well. I didn't know how to look forward. I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to set. I didn't want to work. I was bad because it was the loss of my mother. However, I just felt like maybe I should do what I've always done, just tell stories and intentional stories and see how that helps me. So I started to create images of elder people, like older people, like my mother's demographic in spaces I've normally not seen them. Um, and pop-up parties, concerts, fashion shows. And the fashion show was the one that actually went viral because this was the first time that we actually saw older people fashion runway, older people looking, elegant, fashionable, and all of that. And it was not something that I kind of expected to happen. It was something that I did for myself. Because what happened was when I was creating these things, I was getting like really biased in this presented images. Then I had to train my own data sets, with all the data that I had to create what I actually wanted to create. Then I posted it on LinkedIn. This was like 5 a.m. in the morning. And I did this on my iPad as well. I went out for a jog, came back, my iPad was dead. And I was just wondering what's going on. Look, they're charging it off, like it was like notifications that killed my batteries. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? This is LinkedIn, man. Who is on LinkedIn that is talking and all of that? It was kind of surprising for me. And I posted it on Instagram, and that's the end. I started getting messages from like Shade Room, CNN, from actors in Hollywood, Morgan Freeman, Idris Elba, Rick Carter. It was a lot like it was very quick, I mean, like it was crazy. I can't even explain how that felt. That opened many doors as well. I was able to work in a Marvel Studios film. Blake's not out yet. Fortunately, still working on the politics and all of that. I worked on the early stages of Sinners as well, when it was still called Grilled Cheese. It's also a little bit with Carter. With Carter is the costume director for costume designer for Wakanda. And with that, I kind of worked on many other projects as well. Cadbury, Rolls Royce, and a bunch of other things. And this was just because of this Elder series. And I mean, in the past, I've always, for me to do a job, I do like a tips that all of my time, I'm just trying to, talk about their job. But today, most of us become people that pitch to us in my DMs asking me to do this and that. So my only problem today is time. And I'm just wondering, I put like this massive experience in traditional filmmaking and all of that, but everybody just want the AI. So actually, I want this and AI. I just finished the commercial for a major bank right here in Nigeria, and it was all AI as well. I've done similar commercial that cost a lot of money. I was paid literally the same amount of money for that thing, and it was just mind blowing to show how technology could evolve and change, pipelines and change approaches to stuff. But moving forward from that, the Elder series, right now, we have real fashion shows. We've done fashion shows in Milan, we've done fashion shows in Amsterdam. Our next fashion show is in Barcelona next month. That's sponsored by Mozilla Foundation at the Mozilla Festival in Barcelona. next month. So if you're Barcelona this come around, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be parties and on the big stage, November 7th, 7/15, there. And the crazy thing about this as well is how I use AI is all the outfits that I'm showcasing on the fashion runway, I designed that with AI as well. I created 1,000 pieces with AI, and I produced 30 of those pieces right here in Nigeria. We're showcasing that, you know, in Barcelona as well. And we're very particular about health, how fashion is just like, you know, sustainable fashion. So what we've done on some of the pockets of the clothing is added something called a Faraday cage. And the Faraday cage relatively blocks radiation from the phone, you know, is optional. And obviously, you're not going to get networks in that when you block your radiation. And we're using linen fabrics that is on the 5,000 megahertz, which is the heating frequency. So we're very intentional, you know, beyond designer layer, we're intentional about the output kind of products as well. Beyond that, because of the success of the Elvis series, we're launching a toy collection as well. And the toy collection was kind of like a joke. You know, when the ChatGPT came out, we're doing the action figures of the toys. I did the same here. I started to get messages from like stores and retail, you know, companies asking me to stock it. I'm like, stock what? I don't have toys. And then that was like, okay, I just felt like, you know what, let me do this. And I have distributors in 3 different countries right now. So we're launching those toys in January as well, just based off of, you know, the army. So yeah, that's a lot of what I ask you more questions. You're muted.
If I ask you that, do you have merch question? The answer is yes. It sounds like it.
Yes.
Which is interesting because the fact that it immediately was a fashion instinct, and to touch on other cultural touch points, you know, some people are storytelling, filmmaking, horror movie making, you know.
Yeah.
I think when we spoke first, I mean, I'm careful to make it all about, you know, being a Nigerian or African artist. I mean, because I think you've established yourself in a world stage of just being an artist. But as much as it's still a subject area that you come back to, you know, we've had some other interesting folks that were, I think, at the same film festival in this last year. I mean, look, in some ways, YouTube opened it up that anybody can distribute. It does feel like this wave of technology is also opening it up that anybody can sort of now compete at a similar level for attention and for impact in terms of the quality of the work they're getting to do. Do you feel that uniquely in this moment? Maybe I just didn't know what YouTube channels to follow before, but does something feel special that's happening from wherever it's your part of the world or even, you know, new creators?
Yeah, 100%. Because like right now, like where I'm from, Nigeria, we don't have a lot of access when it comes to this. And most of the time we have to wait, you know, a few months before we have access to it. You know, but the crazy thing is we have a lot of interest in this thing. So now you can filter the real storytellers from just the one that is prompting to get a result. I always tell people it's about the story, not the tool. So if you focus on the story, your tool is just literally like what, you know, what works for you. And now we're finding new ways to tell stories because in the past you have to go through many different barriers and boundaries to be able to actually tell a story. But right now that it's democratized and the barrier has been lowered, and able to tell a story. And you're not seeing different minds and different approaches and different forms, you know, of storytelling, of videos, you know, of expressions as well. So it's changing. I could see the change as well. I could also see the connection between the traditional filmmaking industries and this new form of media, how they try to merge, you know, in terms of VFX or previous visualizations or storyboarding. Like everyone wants to kind of like what's it's of that industry is what I'm saying, which is kind of exciting.
I mean, specifically fashion, as you interacted with that world, you know, yeah, there's all these friction points that some of us interact with the traditional filmmaking world. And it's probably the noisiest topic we talk about in our group chats of like, what's Hollywood think and what's going on with all the studios. What about the fashion world? As much as you're introducing a creative way to design an outfit and even creative way to put a model on a runway that isn't alive or a human. Like, I don't know, like, are you seeing any friction there or are people seeing opportunity there? Are people, what's it like?
The great thing is the fashion industry here is more responsive to the technology than the film or the arts industry. Because like normally like the traditional ways of doing fashion, they're not going to use that. But when it comes to, like I said, previous illustrations, seeing your work on the model or on a runway, everyone embraces it because it's cheaper, it's faster. It's something like you can, because now you put in your own clothing and just a random, a figure on the internet, and you can animate the figure, advertise it. So there's actually zero pushback. In the art industry here, there's a lot of pushback and a lot of, people saying, nah, it's wrong, it's gonna make you lazy and blah, blah, blah. But another side that I'm embracing it as well. So it's almost like a 50 in. But in the fashion side, they're actually looking for ways to use it even more. So I've done a bunch of workshops, how to implement, how to utilize, stuff like that. So that's a good thing, actually, thinking about it.
That's super interesting. I mean, there's all these sectors. I mean, advertising we talked about before is so ripe and has been moving quickly. Just one question on the fashion front. Somebody asked, are the designs strictly AI, or can designers manufacture retail from AI designs? I guess are they mainly just things to look at, or are you seeing that people are really making clothing and a big?
We'll produce 30 physical collections, like actual clothing, sustainable ones. So it's actual things. The AI is mostly just to inspire or to augment the designs, because I illustrate as well. And I feed back to the AI system and I make iterations of what I'm trying to create, so that helps me see a design 10 different ways, 20 different colors, I can add patterns to it, like literally. So that helps me think about what sort of materials I want to use as well. Because before I design anything, I know what kind of materials that I'm thinking about. And when I design that, I produce exactly what has been designed. So what comes out of the AI system is not what the AI designs for me, it's just what it enhances for me. Then we go produce that. So it's exactly the same.
You mentioned, obviously, if other folks have questions, chime in. I'm here to voice them or raise your hands. We love it when people raise hands. I mean, you mentioned, I think, XR and VR earlier, and just as a technologist, I mean, clearly your palette is wide. Min talks a lot about just gaming as sort of this inevitability as another medium. Clearly Elder Series established you in a lot of people's awareness, and I'm thankful for you to talk about it today. But as you talk about things that, with that technologist mindset, I think you're inclined to perhaps look at the edges of things. What are you seeing as, whether it's new experiments and maybe who knows what their market value is, or things that you're starting to sense as new opportunities? I think a lot about how is XR something that moved at a pace because of how resource intensive a lot of it is, but maybe AI starts to infuse a new type of iteration, with how AI develops. I don't know. What are you sort of seeing in that technologist brain of yours, mixed with new opportunities in the coming year?
Yeah, I've actually been working on this new project in the XR space as well. 2 years ago, I did a collaboration with Meta for heritage and culture preservation thing right here in Nigeria. We're preserving the 500-year-old heritage sites. But beyond that, what I use XR and even AI and 3D software for is to reimagine lost historical sites. Historical sites has been lost to wars, natural disasters, or even intentional things like that. We have a lot of them for heritage, UNESCO protected sites as well. But when you go to those spaces, there's nothing there. Like literally, you just find nothing. And we just have pictures sometimes we have descriptions. But with the power of AI today, of 3D, softwares, we could reimagine what the spaces look like and bring that back to life and, transport you there. But beyond looking at that space, we'll range, like bringing back lost languages, symbols, artifacts, the way people would live at a certain time, communal living, architecture, to make you understand what life was like, back then. And this is also connected to a sister project called Legacy Link. And Legacy Link is when we document stories of people that are age 80 and above. Find out what 50, 60 years ago in correlation to what it's like today, in projection to what 50, 60 years from now. So beyond getting all this information, I'm training the AI system with the data that I get from them, so I can create the twins. So in the next generation, they could actually meet their ancestors and ask questions, get responses as well based on factual data as well. So I'm trying to preserve everything, because now we're going to a digital age where everything that we're seeing is algorithms directed to scroll-ins, or we're going to get lost in that. So for us to preserve those things, I'm trying to make that accessible. So it's going to be like a public permanent installation as well, where anyone can access and replicate in different countries as well. So that way we preserve data, knowledge systems, languages, all of that. So beyond Gen AI, I'm also trying to do culture heritage preservation with AI.
Oh my God. It's funny. I was on a panel the other day and some of this stuff trends towards grief tech, and it's mostly about people not wanting to lose their loved ones. And it colors the whole proposition in a way, because there's something either amazing or icky about that. I don't know. It's a very debatable topic. But to just frame it as preservation and this idea of like ancestral knowledge, as for a similar data set or a similar idea of what you're experiencing, that sounds really powerful. And is that something that gets a lot of like academic support, or is that something that, in terms of funding these efforts, is that something that you're finding private support for? How do people get to explore these edges with you? Or,
once in a while I get grants, but most of the things that I do are actually self-funded.
wow.
I'm very proud of things that I do. Privileged to work with big companies that earn good money. So I'm always putting the money back into certain projects that I feel like need the attention. For instance, I started collecting data 6 months ago to create an African large language model. And I mean, when I mean collect data, I'm not talking about going on the internet to scrub data. I'm going to physical spaces to collect archive, scan data of like, spaces that I don't even speak English. I go with a translator, speak to the chiefs there, the village elders, talk to them about AI, talk to them about their data, how it's going to be used, why we need that data, so it's not misrepresented. So we like it's a lot. I just felt like, because I know what to do, I know how to do it. Let me do it. I'll spend almost $100,000 of my personal funds for this thing that is not for my company, it's for the continent. But I felt like that I could do it up until a level that it could be replicable domestic. Federal government speak to other bodies that, okay, this is what I have. How can we, scale or make this bigger? So it's a lot. And I don't sleep with bags.
Yeah, we're exactly. That's the year of sleeplessness, because we're all excited by what's possible. Sounds like you and Blacklight share the big solopreneur energy on how much you're able to do by yourself. Um, I mean, that's so inspiring, and I think that I think lights up what I always try to tell people. So many of these things. I mean, in your case, you're putting significant funds, but in addition to, they're possible by yourself. That some of these things are increasingly like, you don't have to ask for permission to try something. And what a noble pursuit that is. One specific question from Stuart: what workflow do you use in order to fine tune such detailed changes in the clothing that you iterate?
Whoa, it's been changing over the years. You know how this thing changes from, I started with disco diffusion to mid January. So it changes, I have got different workload now, because it's easier right now that we have nano bananas and C-trains, where you can just put in an image and get something off of that. But in the past, I would have to see the, sketches, drawings, colors, and use that to create the iterations. And I go to Photoshop as well. It's not just AI. I go back into Photoshop and some iterations and changes. They put it back in the AI system and keep making changes until I get to what I'm trying to find. When I find what I'm looking for, I just replicate back mostly. But today it's a lot easier. Like all I need is a reference, all I need is a sketch. I have to do the rest of it. So
Thank you. Good answer. And I think it does seem like we're getting an abundance of control with some of these photo editing tools, and Photoshop's a place to use Nano Banana too. So it all kind of converges. Adam, I wonder, this is a question. I wonder what the place of archive and testimony might be for, I think, your previous project. A good friend of his is doing archival testimony work with the Yazidi and the Rwandan community around both their history. Sorry, maybe that's a comment, Adam. Sorry, I thought that was a question. But do you have any connection to that, Malik, or what are you saying? This world of archive and testimony?
I'll check it out and some research in there.
Very cool. And Michelle wants to reach out to you. She has a bunch of historical preservation stuff. Check out the chat. I don't know, just because you mentioned Photoshop, what do you think about what's going on with Adobe? I mean, it was a lively topic. We almost had to rein us back in to do an interview show today. But what's your take on what's being announced and where this sits in the toolkit for you? And maybe we can revisit that. I don't know if Blacklight, unless you just said I don't use it before Blacklight, you're welcome to chime back in. But
I'm very oblivious to what's going on right now. I've been in my shell working, so any news out there, I've got no clue what's going on. I've been, like I said, finished the commercial, and when I'm working, I'm like shut off from the wall, like I'm just in my little shell. So whatever's going on with me right now, I have no idea.
Got it. No, I guess just the general conversation about where Adobe sat as like the sort of the, for a lot of people, our primary toolkit for creativity. And I think in a lot of
it's still very much. I use Printable all the time. I still used it yesterday because I did like a Sora thing. I did like a 2-minute film with Sora, and I needed to use Premiere Pro to put it together. My traditional work, I always use that still. I still use Photoshop regardless. There's so many things I could just, I still like to create or deal with by myself, you know, so I feel like there's still very, well, I don't know what it'll be like next year because everything's changing still.
Yeah.
You know, but for now, there's still many things I need control over, and that control is what makes me feel like it's your thing.
I think you're echoing our values of being tool agnostic, which is probably problematic to an Adobe that wants to have their own kind of unique position. But there are a lot of great tools. Men sort of celebrate saying that, you know, how these AI fashion shows, you know, manifested into real life fashion shows. Are there other things that you think could go from an AI version of blank that could become a real thing? Have you thought about that template that you've in some ways created?
Like the only thing I can think about is when I'm pitching my anthology series of films, because normally I do like a pitch deck PDF thing, but today I just did a film with AI and I send it to whoever is watching it, and they just go, wow, you know, it's depending. And that's the crazy thing about AI, because of the way I can control my outputs. So I can create almost exactly the world I'm trying to create. So that makes it easier for me to show my investors what I'm trying to do, or just to inspire myself on something. I was watching I was reading about Shakespeare the other day, and I just felt inspired to create something similar to like in an African world. That's the liberty we have today. You can imagine something and create that bit based on how you approach it. So yeah,
it's the previs, the power of previs that is minimally a step on your journey if you're making a movie. But yeah, in some ways you previs the fashion show. And I also think you manifested something that didn't exist. It wasn't just, I'm taking my stab at the Balenciaga one. You're like, no, this is an intention moment for something that deserves homage.
And in whole honesty as well, I never thought it would go viral. I never thought it would go as far as it did. It was just me seeing a gap, you know, and just doing something about that gap. So I never thought like we'll have real fashion shows or real, like, for instance, we have one in Barcelona next month. We have another in Casablanca in January as well. And the collection, I haven't even launched the collection yet. That just shows the power of the story behind it. And that's just fascinating for me. So I also learned that journey as well, to be intentional with everything I'm doing, with the stories I'm telling. So it was cool.
That's awesome. I can't help but wonder, and maybe this is my Hollywood hat jumping in, but for all of us noticing Guillermo del Toro and what he has to say, what was it like with Ryan Coogler? Like, does he have an opinion on this stuff? And to the extent,
I worked closely with Carter. Ruth Carter has always been a technologist. You know, she told me about when she was working on the first film, and I think it was 1990, so 1991. And she had a VHS and an old school computer and a printer, and she would force the VHS connected to the printer and print out a Tina Turner outfit to inspire her before the internet. You know, then we had the internet and all that. So she's always been, you know, at the forefront. Because when I worked on Blade a couple of years ago, she was telling me about how she feels like this is the place that we're going to get to in terms of privilege, in terms of, you know, getting to the space faster. Because in the past, you have illustrators, then you know, privilege, and something to call them before you even go into production. Different stages of stuff. And now we could use AI to break all the stages. And you don't necessarily have to replace this people there. These people could be the ones to adopt this new technology to be, you know, the ones doing the same thing as well. So it was for him. I don't know about his mindset, but because she was who I worked with, she was forward-thinking already.
I'm sorry, she was on the Sinner set. Is that why you're mentioning her? She was.
Yeah, sure. she
Yeah.
they don't fit. She did it over skill. But what we were trying to do initially was to differentiate smoke and stack. That's the Maccabees and was to show that
Yeah. Very well
this
done.
was just last year before anything happened.
If people aren't getting the reference, go see Sinners. It probably one of the most original films that came out this last year, and pretty interesting story about how Ryan Coogler was able to negotiate with Warner Brothers and get rights to things that nobody ever gets rights to. So really good story, unrelated to AI, but a cool movie to work on, by the way. Might be a question for both you and Blacklight, because it's a creator economy question. Shalu is asking, do you see potential for someone to rely on AI art for a majority of their income at this time, or not yet? And they're saying that they're a part-time AI artist, but haven't monetized or even thought of monetizing because they have a YouTube channel with like 20 subscribers. Like, are we, I think, are we at a point that there are pathways, and either of you should chime in. I brought Blacklight back up. What is sort of the monetizing journey that we can at least start offering advice for? Maybe Blacklight go first, because we'll go back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's about getting as many revenue streams as possible. So like merchandise is a great one that's always available and online. Your store never really closes. Social media, you can monetize. I mean, I started the year with 20 subscribers myself, and now I have like 5,000 plus on YouTube. And I have over 120,000 on TikTok, and I monetize both those channels independently. And then I'm also, because of all the content, I've been offered like exclusive content deals coming up in 2026. So, you never know where a revenue stream is going to come from, and, just figure out how you can monetize any channel that you're using, no matter what it is. And there's so many different ways to monetize. I mean, you could set up an email list if you wanted to in a Discord and charge monthly for consultations. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I totally agree with Blacklight as well. How I've done it because of the virality of the other series. I've got collectors that collects the canvases of the images in different parts of the wall. I also created products. That's why I created the toy collection as well. That I created a clothing line with that as well. But obviously, this requires physical, things connected to it as well. Well, I'm also privileged that I work with a lot of major commercial companies for commercial work, mostly in Europe and America as well. But what helps me with that is I'm always kind of posting something different all the time. I post a different style that I know it's kind of commercialized. That maybe a bag with like an oil company with like such and target view, like target market. My background is also in business, so that helps me to kind of like target, some clients for one night. So sometimes I create things just to spark my imaginations, and when I do that, I'm always getting DMs to ask me what your rates, all of that. So as creators, we always have to post our work, share our work. That's how we get seen. That's how you can do it with certain styles, because a lot of people are looking for something to create, or even companies don't even know what to want. When they see a work, they start to think, okay, maybe I could do this for my company as well. So experiment, and like Blacklight said, you never know what come from, but it's always going to be bad. It's always up.
Yeah, I mean, my sense in what both of you are saying is that the blueprint is in the creator economy. I mean, even before AI came along, people have been learning that you can't just rely on one revenue stream, advertising, subscriptions. You need to figure out which of these work for you and do all of them. Like both of you have kind of given the same answer implicitly, is that it's an all of the above answer. It used to be, I just work in Hollywood and make money off of ticket sales, like that system's, let's call it evolving. But there's also more interesting ways for creators, and both of you are in solopreneur mode and so much. And I think it speaks to the power of what a strong vision and a strong voice can deliver.
Can I add those parts there?
Stuart's going for it. I'm asking, what rates do you charge? I'll say maybe you shouldn't answer that in a group like this, but up to you.
Greg, can I just mention the one part of it too is like, I do this part-time. So like I have a full-time job on top of it. So I think Shlu was mentioning, is it a full-time thing? I mean, it is full-time effort, but not full-time salary yet. But I don't think that is, going to be the case for long. I think as you grow and you get more established and Malik can probably speak to more his experience on it, but at least for mine, it's a part-time sort of thing.
Which is another way of saying even more of the above. It's
Yeah.
all of the above. There's different types of the above.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Malik? Sorry.
No, I was agreeing with them, like, because I run a production company, and more of the offers that I get from my production company, I do traditional stuff is AI things, so it's changing, it's evolving, because people want things faster, people want to see things quicker, and the budget might just be a little bit less per novel, but you still need to charge, quite a decent amount of money for your time and experience for that what you're charging for, but the AI system is still doing stuff, so.
Stuart, if I'm not asking you a question, do you want to hop up and ask your question? I think it sounds like very specific.
Hey, you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, this is great. Thanks for doing this, guys. Big fans of both of yours. I just wanted to throw out a couple of things. I didn't actually mean to throw out your rates right now, but I am curious to know, I'm sure people want to know, this is an ongoing thing of like, is it a jobly bid? Is it a weekly bid? I mean, I get this all the time. And, there is a ballpark of, is it 10 grand a minute? Some people charge per minute of stuff. Some people charge per job. I understand. So that's my one if you could give any ballpark from your guys' perspective from the international community as well, Malik, I'd really love to know what is out there. I think other people kind of really want to know so that we end up cutting ourselves. And then the second question I had was, if the DGA or some sort of union would be open to accepting AI artists, would you guys be open to joining a union that would have minimums, that would protect creative rights, things like that? So I would love to know both of those. Thank you for your time.
I'm all for unions. I think they're great. I think they provide great value, and there's voice and power in numbers. I do a variety of those. I have a client that I have a yearly retainer, which is in the 6-figure range. I also work on a per project basis. Those can range anywhere, depending on the project size and length, from $3,000 or $4,000 up to $10,000 to $20,000 per project. I've done one-off music videos for artists before, and I've charged about $1,000 a minute. So it really depends on the client and the situation. My retainer client, I'm on call 40 hours a week with them. They hit me up whenever they need content. I have, very tight timelines that I have to adhere to. So with the money comes a lot of the unnice things where I can't take vacation and, fly all over as much as I want to, because if they need something for tomorrow, I have to deliver it. So it varies on your situation, what you're willing to do. I'm trying to set myself up for a nice, healthy retirement. And so I just take as much as I can wherever I can get it.
Yes, it's kind of similar for me. And sometimes it's per hour, and that's between like $250 to $300 an hour. For some clients, sometimes it ranges from $3,000. From my experience, between $3,000 and $55,000 for certain projects, depending on the client as well. Some of the clients pay weekly, some of the clients pay a ballpark figure. Depends on what you're doing as well. Sometimes I just give a figure. If I see that they don't have, I just give a figure, and they go, okay. Sometimes they go, oh, that's not within our range right now. Can you take this? Maybe I give a 10,000, also 7,000. So I'm always looking at it based on my time, which is the thing that I have to list. Like, I don't have time at all. So I'm always finding myself training new people or just giving up a job because there's no time to do, some certain things. Because I've got to travel on Saturday, for instance. I have to clear my desk. So I've been going back to back, no sleep, just, clearing decks and servicing clients. So that is something as well. Think about the time it would take for you to spend a lot of time behind the computer to do that. And a lot of great talent, great work as well. So yeah, it kind of varies. You just have to assess the clients that you're speaking to, know how to match that. And in terms of the union, 100% as well, for the unions, that's the leads. And yeah, 100%.
Rise of the proletariat. And Stuart, for what it's worth, you're in the DGA, so it's a
I'm part of the Directors Guild specifically. So we are talking about things like this at the Directors Guild and trying to figure out in the AI committee, is this worth it? It's potential new revenue stream for a lot of new members, right? So they're thinking about it like a business, and I'm thinking about it like we got to start protecting ourselves, because I'm bidding against someone else who's undercutting, and you guys will undercut. So you guys should be charging more. We should all be charging more. For me, I just wanted to say, like, somehow visual effects sprinkled the magic over Hollywood and made everyone think, oh, that's effects. That's expensive. Oh, we got to pay for visual effects. That's expensive. So that should happen for us too. I feel like when we post, I did this in 3 minutes for $500, doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, we all know how popular those posts are. I don't even know who likes those posts. Like, nobody actually likes that post. Like, the only person that likes it is how much engagement they get to then do whatever else they want to do. Obviously, Blacklight, you're such a great advocate. It'd be interesting if you instituted ever sidebarred on that stuff. I defer to both of you. Queensley, one last question, and actually pretty specific for Malik. And I think I know where this is coming from. How often do you see tool companies like Runway or VO engage with you and creators in the global South in building their tools? And I think it's, there's so many CPPs out there. Are you seeing traction in your part of the world?
Not as much as you would expect. Sometimes we get offers from some companies, and when we give our rates, they don't respond. Because we're not trying to collaborate just for tokens, but I don't believe in stuff like that with my experiences. A few times, yes, got some connections with like global deals sometimes. Sometimes I test before it comes out for some companies as well. That's just based on my profile. Sometimes they reach out to me and I just don't accept because I don't have the time or anything. But we need more engagement when it comes to actual, there's tech companies to engage with the creators here, but we don't have enough of that. I think it's just Runway right now. Just Runway. We had the Runway thing recently. Yeah.
Good. It sounds like the answer is not enough. About that. But look, thank you guys both. I hope, sorry to everybody if I was a little chaotic in the first few minutes. I almost got it right that this was the full Voltron moment today, but I'm gonna have to wait till next week. But we did get a big piece of the Voltron moment with our friends at Escape.ai. For anybody that did give it a try, it's still open. I think it's going to stay open for another 30 minutes. If you even want to just give it a try, all the instructions. John, our incredible friend, is in the chat group right now, flagging links there, as well as some upcoming activities. There's the macabre. What do we call it? The Macabre and Mayhem
Fest on
which
Friday.
is perfectly timed for spooky season. But thanks everybody. Please check out the room. And also I'm going to do a little Google form for us and Escape just to get any feedback on how the immersive theater went today. We got an event tonight in Seattle. Our friend John Bonds has got a jam happening there. There's another one that Min and Afan are running out of New York today. Next week, actually in the coming weeks here in LA, we have an impact jam that Michael Run and Jennifer are running, which is really special to us because we're starting to explore ways that we can use our kind of in-person experiences to help with NGOs. And then also here in LA in December, I think I'm going to share more on this, but anybody that's in town, we're going to get a dome that's happening. I've been sort of putting this out for a minute. We got a pretty exciting event that it's going to be a big experiment for us, but we're really pushing into some, and follow our calendar. There's so many events that all of our different cities are doing, but thank you so much to Malik. It was such a joy to be introduced to you by Min and how his adventures to connect more people around the world are really coming back to us here. Blacklight, always a pleasure. And I love even how much I think you guys organically had a lot in common today. That I love this points of synergy. But thanks everybody. Please do check out Escape.ai. They've been awesome partners today. And we will see you guys in a week. Thanks everybody.
You guys, thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
Thank you.